Got to hide that one so they can see us. Hey,
Yeah.
good morning. It is Wednesday, February 26th, and we are here with the Dev Talk Show. Joined always by my colleague Chris Gomez. Chris, how are we doing this morning?
Doing pretty good. It is Wednesday, right? That's how crazy this week has been, as I have to ask myself what day it is.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, but it's been a good week so far. We've got some interesting things we want to talk about, and we're starting a few minutes late. But I do want to mention one thing. Let me see if I can share my screen real quick. For those who don't know, as of yesterday, .NET Preview 1 is now available. There was definitely one live stream from the community yesterday, going through some of the features and talking through the various sections of things that are out there and ready for you to try. And it's actually broken down into different sections here between the libraries and the runtime and the SDK. So the things that, if you're interested in, it's a chance for you to go out and start playing with this and give your feedback and comments, and hopefully get things into a shape so that when we get to November and .NET Conf, we'll have an awesome long-term servicing release branch for .NET 10. And also, I don't know. I didn't know if you wanted to chime in on something with that, Chris, or
So the main
something
thing
you're
that I
interested
know that I have not
in.
watched yet is that you
Okay.
mentioned the .NET channel live stream on this yesterday.
Yep.
Um, it was a little bit over an hour. I didn't get to
Mm-hmm.
watch it. It was during some meetings that I had, but I did see that it was going, and so I dropped the link into our chats, and we'll make sure to get it into the show notes for this.
Awesome.
So.
Good stuff. And then, not to be, overshadow, but there was also, uh, are we calling it a release? Yeah, I guess it is a release of 9.1 .NET Aspire. So that also had a lot of video coverage as well. In that Jeff Fritz over at C Sharp Fritz did I think a 4 hour, like a pre session talking about Aspire, and then joined the community release party, I think is what they were calling it. So lots of great stuff in the .NET space, whether you're building apps, or you're taking advantage of Aspire to get those apps off of your machine and into the cloud. There's some really great content out there to get up to speed on. So yeah, just making you all aware of those things. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're actually going to go back and try and see if there's a way that we can easily bring this up. Let me drop back to us for a second while I see, because we did have. I'm trying to think of an easy way to bring a comment in from a user that's not part
Oh,
of StreamYard here or part of the show.
here I have that. Hold
Do you
on,
have it?
it's going to take me a
Okay,
second,
that's
but
okay.
let me.
So while you're pulling that up, this is, we do read your comments. We do. And I know Chris is a lot better at this than I am in getting in there and replying and giving his thoughts around those, your thoughts and comments and seeing the video in the future. So we love seeing them. We love reading them. And we got one recently from someone who viewed a video that has been around for, looking back at when Chris, and this is when you did solo, Chris. It was actually 10 months ago you did that one.
Okay.
But part of a collection of videos that we did focused on .NET, Blazor, and authentication. And this
Yeah.
particular comment here, go ahead, you want to take it?
Yeah. So this is from, the username is Alan Nielsen 4752, and was watching again an older video that has gotten a lot of traction. So thank you all for watching that video. And it's about it. The video specifically was about Blazor authentication with EntraID, and my goal in the video was to I have this vision. I had this vision of, you're at work, you're being asked to build an app that the users at work will use. And so instead of like creating a whole new user database or trying to struggle with how to integrate who's the currently logged in user on the Windows desktop or whatever, many of us are at work where we're in an organizational account using EntraID, right? Which used to be called, just in case you don't know, it used to be called Azure Active Directory. I know that change has been a while, but I still wonder how many people might be like, what are you talking about? So
I still call it Azure AD.
yeah. So this was, how do we add that organizational access so that you can log in with an external account, just like it might be Google, Twitter, or your personal MSA and Microsoft account. And there was plenty of documentation out there, I thought, on this, but it confused me a little bit when I read it, because the documentation tried to attack it from all of its points of view, whether it's a personal account, whether it's organizational, whether you want to allow both. And I just thought, what if we can distill this to the one path, the path of,
Right.
I want my coworkers to log into this. So it says here, terrific video. Thanks. Any chance you can extend this further and include calls to the MS Graph and add the avatar image when logged in, and how to get additional info from Graph and include these in the token? I think it's great. I think it's absolutely where we want to go. Like, there's no doubt about that. So to set expectations for this, I don't have a completed project sitting off to the side ready to bring in here. Rich said to me, let's figure it out.
Yeah. So 5 minutes before the show, I'm poking text and saying, we can do this. We can do this.
Now,
Come on.
Now, some people have told us when they watch this show, they appreciate watching the process of development. I respect if you are here saying, I was hoping to see the jump to the answer. We tend to try to do another show later, maybe that's a little more focused when we start to figure things out. So it seems like we really have two types of viewers. So just to set the proper expectation for somebody who may have already spent 8 minutes and 38 seconds with us, we're going to take the old project and see if we can use Graph after they've logged in, or whatever it takes to get their user photo out, as a way for you to go and get user details as well.
Yeah. And if you're really impatient, just jump ahead 38 minutes and you'll see us, because the last 10 minutes is where we do all the good stuff anyway.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. So what I actually have here is a different app, which may surprise Rich a little bit because he didn't know I was going to do this. I actually have a different application. This is when we did Blazor Auth from scratch, and we built up to a place where you were logging in with either the local account or I think we were supporting local accounts. Yes, we were. We were supporting local accounts with this TDTS cookie, but I believe that we were shortcutting that. In fact, I'm pretty sure that we shortcut that so that there was really only one username. You could basically put whatever username you put in, you were passed. It was good. We didn't check passwords or anything. And the purpose of this was not to say go to production with this. It was to peek under the hood of what you get for free that just works, but where is it? It's mysterious. Like, I guess this is all working and saving it to a database. And that was just basically demystifying that. But then we also wanted you to be able to log in with Google and with Microsoft. And when you logged in with Google, when we got this one extra claim that we would grab out of the Google authentication challenge response, and that claim, if we asked for the URN Google picture claim, if we asked for the picture claim out of there, we would get a URL, and then we could just display it. So the end result is, in this application, some people may remember this from a while back, we wrote our own login, but we can also log in with a Google account. I happen to be already logged in with my Google account, which many of us, I think, are. I like Google's just logged in all the time, or your Microsoft account's just logged in all the time. And so it went ahead and authorized me. It grabbed information out of the response from Google, and we even got the URL for the picture. I'm curious where that link heads off to. Oh, it's way the heck out here. So it looks like my Google account picture is available at some random link on the web. We're trying to replicate this experience for an organizational EntraID, right?
Right.
So different application now. This and you're going to see my Blazor EntraID app, where this particular app, it's what it does instead is you provide it with a client ID and a client secret for your app registration.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also have to supply the authorization endpoint and token endpoint for your tenant. Okay. So, what's different?
And that's the application that you did that you built as part of that video that Alan Nielsen had commented on, right?
Right.
Okay.
I've always been a little unsure whether I should be concerned about tenant ID GUIDs. I don't know that they're secret. And the reason I say that is because when you do the authorization challenge, that's going to be part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like somebody can't go get it. What they can't get is or should not be able to get access to, is your client ID and secret. So
right.
I'm going to go ahead and let that go at the risk of, I'm pretty sure that's fine. So let's look at the difference here real quick. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this. Is in order to log into your account, quote unquote, at work, you have to provide a couple more pieces of information. You have to provide the token endpoint and the authorization endpoint, because those are specific to your tenant. Whereas when you're just doing personal MSAs, there's a global URL that's managed for you. You don't have to think about it. But there's basically, like, Microsoft has this global, I don't know what the correct term is here, EntraID, like, or whatever the login services. Yeah, and it's basically you're saying, like, hey, this could be any one of the personal access users. So there's a problem, though. When I run this app, first of all, I have to do a couple kind of fancy things. Is I want to bring this up in a private window. And the reason why I want to do that is because I wanted to go through the whole logging in experience from someone in a tenant. Oh, whoops, I accidentally closed this. And so sorry about that. Let's get this back up here. Yes. So this is a private window. I don't want any credentials to already be in the system, in the is it not 7222? Oh, I see. It's because I haven't provided the client ID. Okay. We were talking about this beforehand.
Yep.
So I'm going to need to go to bring up the Azure portal. I know I'm using the portal. That's okay.
Sometimes to show initially. That's
all
what
right.
we do.
So this happens to be my very small EntraID tenant, where I have a couple test users that have user principal names, and they've got passwords and everything. Now, what I don't have here is I have not registered an app. I had registered an app.
Right.
You have to have an app registration to get a client ID and secret so that EntraID access is allowed. And I had registered an app, but every once in a while I like clean house in here, because as you can imagine, I get a lot of sample 1, sample 2, sample 3, sample 4. It just happens all the time. Right. So the client ID and secret that were being used before no longer are in here. So I think I want a new registration, and we're going to say Blazor Auth. Well, let's call this Blazor EntraID.
Yeah, it's going to
Auth. Okay. Now, this is where you get the great choice here. Who can access the API? You can build an app registration that will go do personal MSAs only. This is great for stuff out to the public. Yep. You can say that I will allow both. I will allow a tenant or somebody using their personal account. Maybe they're on Xbox, maybe they're on Skype, whatever. I will allow anybody's organization, but this is the one that I think you want to use probably on the job, which is my tenant. So
there are totally different reasons why you would go through those depending on your app you're building, right? So why would you ever want one that might go across? Maybe you're building something that goes against the Microsoft 365 properties, like you're building something for Outlook. Well, it could be used with somebody who has Outlook for work, or somebody who has Outlook personal, and you want it to be able to work across both of those. So that's an example where, there are reasons why people need to do that.
Right. Now, what I'm concerned about here is I don't remember what to put in here.
In where?
In this here where it says return the authentication response to this URI. It can be changed later, but a value is required. It's like sign in, and I think this might be in those docs.
Yeah.
So
sorry, I should have had that up and going.
So let me see if I can find this real quick. This is not it.
There's secure in ASP.NET Blazor with Entra.
Yeah, I think so.
Drop it in Discord.
This one, right? So these are actually some of the newer. These are some of the newer articles we haven't gotten a chance to talk about yet.
Oh wow! Okay.
There are new articles here that are drilling down, which I think is really great. I think it's really, really cool. Like, they actually answer some of the questions that people have asked us when we were kind of like, we're not really sure yet. So it looks like this is it.
Yeah. It says redirect URI. Yep.
Okay. And it's interesting here that it says a port isn't required. I'm gonna just say to everybody that I've always put the port of the app in because I thought it was. So I will be very curious. Like, maybe this is great to kind of learn some of this stuff that hey, maybe these are some of the things that we wish were documented before. So let's go back to the portal. Go ahead.
Don't lose that page, because some of the other settings that we're going to set are mentioned there as well, around the implicit flow and things like that. So we're going to come back to that in a minute.
Okay. I just have to find my register and application page.
There you go.
So we're going to put this in. Oh, I'm curious. What was auto? See what I've done in the past, or at least it's guessing. It says the last time you were here, you did sign in Microsoft, and I have a feeling. I wonder. Interesting. Okay,
you can certainly change that, right? Because it matches what you have in your code.
Yeah, I'm going to try what the documentation says, and then if it doesn't work, we'll switch to sign in Microsoft. Okay, because that's not hard to change. No. Now, there's some other things we have to do still. So one of the things that I always pointed out to people is you need to grab these. You need to grab these authorization endpoints. So what I did is once this app was registered, I need to find the app. Blazor auth from scratch. No, this one. Blazor EntraID auth. And I can pick endpoints, and this authorization endpoint here, I'm gonna shrink this down a little bit so we can look. I think this is already set up. So you go down to the OAuth 2 authorization endpoint. Here it is. It's the same, and it's the same. So you have to drop these into into your configuration. Otherwise, it doesn't know that you're trying to do a single tenant login. Now, the next thing that I need is the client ID, which is right here. So, and granted, I'm going to delete this client after we're done today. And then I'm going to go create the secret. I'm going to show you how to do it, but then I'm going to put it in off screen. And then this application won't exist after the show anyway. So let me just double check here. I need to say add a certificate or secret, which I think one place to do it is just right here. I think this is another place to do it here.
I should take you to the same place.
I think so. So I'm going to click here. Like I said, it's been a little while. A secret string that the application uses to prove its identity. So you say new client secret. And like you said, it must have expired because it said 6 months. And this is the app secret for website, something like that. Now, I don't think it's going to just show it here, but just in case, I'm going to click add.
Because that would be the only time that you can get to it. Because once you say, I got it, it's never accessible directly again.
Right.
The portal.
That's right. And so I'm looking at the secret. Oh, here's the value. Okay. So I'm looking at the value now. And I'm going to paste it in here, but I'm going to do that off screen. So it would go right here. This is how it all looks.
Yep.
And I'll save that right now and close it. And it's back. So that should be fine. Now, let me refresh that page in the portal because I think to your point, yes. So to your point, I've refreshed that page in the portal and now I get a masked secret.
Cool.
I can come delete this later, right? And all that stuff. And we are back. I'm sorry, I wasn't.
No.
Oh, yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Bring it back. I know it. I forget that you're looking at a very, very tiny screen, so you have no idea. Yeah. So I refreshed in the portal. This value is now masked. It is saved in the secrets.json, and that secrets.json is closed. Yeah.
It's important that secret ID is not what you're looking for. It's the value that you want.
Yes.
Because sometimes people get too confused.
Right.
You do need to look at your registration and make sure that the, I think it's under authentication, because I didn't see it when we were going through there. Right. So that's the value bit.
Yep. Okay. So you said app registration, authentication.
Yeah. And then we're looking for the thing where it says implicit flow.
Yeah. I feel like, did we do this last time?
Oh, okay, cool. That part there. So if I recall from the documentation that you had up, we should leave those unchecked.
Yes, right. Implicit grant flows are technically deprecated in the OAuth 2 world.
Yep.
The history on this escapes me a little, but I remember there was and maybe this is, I think that EntraID is past this now. There was sort of this grace transition period where Microsoft and EntraID was actually taking some criticism for leaving this up, but I believe there's a mitigation that they talk about. But I don't really want to get into it because that's probably betraying, like, I'm probably a little out of date on this. I'm probably a little out of date on it. So let's
point from that is the more secure way of doing this is not to have those checked and not to use that kind of implicit flow.
Yeah. And it's because there is a replacement in the SPA world called the authorization code flow.
Mm-hmm.
That was designed to replace the implicit grant. And so I believe that's what this is trying to tell you. But what it doesn't say here is, like, it doesn't say here, and I don't want to jump the gun and be unfair, but what it doesn't say in this paragraph is try not to use this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's unfair. So I don't really want to, I'd have to go do some research to catch up on that. So we have a client ID, a client secret, the auth endpoint, the token endpoint. What I am hoping is that this all works. I've got my in private version of the site up. And so let's refresh that. And so, okay, we got past the initial problem where it was saying some configuration you're looking for is gone. Oh, I accidentally closed it. You know what? Visual Studio can really irk me in that if you close the browser. I wonder if that's a configuration setting I can change. So here I am. This page is accessible to everyone. This page requires auth, so you end up getting redirected to login. And we have Microsoft. We have use your Microsoft account, but it's the organizational account. So it's going to ask me to sign in. And I have, you might have seen I had those users out there, right?
Yes.
So let me put in one of them. Let's put in the password for them, for that test user, and permission required. Now, this is something that only happens once, because if I recall correctly, this is you basically confirming to EntraID that, yes, this is the application that's going to have access.
Yeah, exactly. It's all based off the app registration you just did.
Yeah. So anyways, let's run it.
Yeah.
And now here we go, right?
It's looking at the old, because it's looking for sign in Microsoft. Yeah.
Right. So it really is looking for sign in Microsoft, which is fine. I will be very interested in seeing how, if we start a brand new project in .NET 9, have things changed a little bit. I don't want to, because. So let's go change the app registration. I'm glad, in a way, I'm glad that this was pretty straightforward. Like it said exactly what the problem was.
Yeah, so, I'm kind of guessing if we go back and watch that video from 10 months ago, you probably changed that endpoint URL to say you can make this whatever you want.
I wonder.
You don't think so?
I don't think so, because I think there was a different document back then. Sign in Microsoft.
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's find out. So I don't see it there. All right. I just did a quick search through the app, but that's okay. Let's try. And they're saying port not required, so I want to give that a quick try.
Okay.
Let's add that URI. Okay. So that should be fine. Now, let's try it again. I don't think I can just refresh. Yeah, I didn't think so. It's like, you tried to refresh as a GET request. Nah, So I need the URL. And I need to log in. And I'm going to say Microsoft. And am I going to have to open another in private window? Maybe open another in private window. Okay. And we want to log in. And yep, it's going to do all this stuff again. So test user, but I need the password for test user. Okay, this is promising. Stay signed in. Don't show it again until we see that again. Oh, okay. So let's just go exactly with the URL, since that didn't seem to work either. Or maybe I didn't read the. I wonder if I didn't read the message carefully enough. I hope that that's not it. That I'm good here. So now, one more time. Okay, need to log in, saying that I'm using Microsoft. It's saying, all right, great, you're Microsoft. What's your organizational account? And this is my fake user in the Azure tenant there, or the EntraID tenant. And cross our fingers. No. Do I have... What did I do wrong here? Oh, I didn't click save for one thing. So if I go back to the portal, there's a save button at the bottom that I didn't click.
Oh, no. Okay.
So I would change it here, and then there was a save button lit up. In fact, maybe it's still viewable. Yeah, it's just not, it was lit up, right?
Okay.
So I would like to believe that this is the one. That's my hope anyways. So Where's our app at? It's at HTTPS localhost 7222, and we'll log in, and we'll click Microsoft. Put the password in. Say we're going to sign in, and finally,
there we go.
That worked. So, okay. So the previous failures, what were they all due to? Let me be a little clearer about what they were due to. I was stubborn and said, well, the documentation said sign in IDC, although I haven't examined that documentation to see what was different. This was the URL that we needed to point specifically to our app and to go back to the sign in Microsoft URL that's allowed for this. But when I changed it here, watch what happens when you change it. See how that save button lights up?
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't clicking it.
That makes sense.
What I was doing is I was coming here and I was saying, oh, add URI. Oh, okay, look, it's added, right? But I wasn't clicking save. So if I say discard, it puts it back. So this, it was important, at least for me, to match this up. That was important, no doubt. But I wasn't clicking save every time I was changing it. So this save button here, don't let it, burn you here. And if you do something nuts like I tend to do and work in a window, see how it was hidden off screen because I wasn't full screen. So
yeah.
Okay. So that's just a little safety tip working in EntraID and setting this stuff up and getting frustrated because you're saying, why doesn't it work? Make sure that your changes here are saved and that this little save button isn't lit up. Okay, so we know this works. We know that we can see the user profile, and that's great. That's awesome. Now, the trick is, if you are authenticated, I'm sure we would love to get the picture out.
Mm-hmm.
That was the whole point of this. And my question is, how do we do it?
Yeah. So that's a good question. No. It's one of those mornings. So in a browser.
Okay.
Not one that you're authenticated with, with your that gets you into the portal, let's say. So if you want to do
maybe stick in this private. Okay.
You could do this one because this person,
right.
This person's already authenticated.
Yeah.
Right, so let's go. So go to graph.microsoft.com. And what this is essentially the home for all of the, for getting access to all of the M365 information, everything about your that's accessible for your account that you're signed in with. So if you go across the top there, it says Graph Explorer. And this is, almost like a what's that URL API tester?
Yeah. There's API testers in all the different, like YouTube has one.
Yeah.
Or you're talking like Postman, basically.
That's it. I knew it began with a P, but
okay.
That was as far as I got.
Right.
So it's almost like a Postman interface. But what's great there is you see we have my photo. Now it's showing, I think that is Karen from the entities that exist in the Office demos. But yes, that's where you want to go. So you want to sign in. So, and you can do this in your own tenant, right? So this gives, and again, where it's an app registration that makes all of this happen.
Right.
So we would do accept.
Frankly, they did the same thing we did. They're logging us in the same way, right? And here we go. So if I say run query, then that's what's interesting about this particular user. There's no image registered.
Yes.
So I was curious about how that would look, and you get an answer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So you would have to, be looking for that. So realize that and I'm sure this is all in the documentation, that there's an error response. And if you get the error response, you're not going to have an image and, be able to throw something else up there essentially. So
what I'm going to do now is let's use a different user, and we'll use a different user for this whole entire thing. Let's,
okay.
Because that was intentional. if there was anything somewhat pre-planned here, it was I was curious what it would do. How would it react to a user that doesn't have a picture? We have to have the app running. So
you mean we scripted something?
No, I just did it on purpose. I wouldn't call it scripted as much as like I just want to see it break. I am the kind of person that usually wants to see it break before. So I have a different account. And people might have noticed that there were multiple accounts in the tenant. So this one is example user. Now, example user, I think, has to change their password. So we're going to get that experience of changing the password right here, which I am going to do very quickly. Quickly, I guess, is a relative term. And now I have to accept the permissions for the app because the Blazor EntraID auth, this user has not accepted yet.
Mm-hmm.
And you've successfully authenticated. And then here's something different that the Blazor app, the Blazor sample code does for you is they automatically register you into the database so that they've kind of got you linked up.
Mm-hmm.
But the point is that we should be able to. It's interesting that it's struggling here. I don't need to register as a new user.
Mm-mm.
That's odd. I feel like I just want to log in with that account and see how it's. I don't really.
I mean, isn't there a local registration database?
There is, but that's not what I'm trying to concentrate on the show here. And for some reason,
I agree.
For some reason, after registering, and maybe it's, gosh, I wonder if I disconnected some of these things unintentionally, is after registering, it seems to get stuck in this loop where it's not logged in, but at the same time won't let me continue on because it's saying, oh, I can't register you. Somebody already used that name.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping to get past this here. See this part here? You've successfully authenticated with Microsoft. Please enter an email address for this site and click the. Well, let's just try this. Really? Oh, a user with this login already exists. And I need this example user to work, but I'm curious what's going on there. Now, does this mean we're going to have to dive into our local database?
Or that?
I actually don't know what's going on there, which is unfortunate. But I'm hoping that I can connect to my local DB quickly. And here's the database.
Data Studio, right?
Yeah, I'm in Azure Data Studio. And what's going on in here? So we know that there's some users.
Users.
Oh, it looks like I've done this a few times.
And that nothing 2 and 3 were already kind of taken.
Yeah. Is that the issue? There's no date in here that I see because I was going to look for a date to see when did I do this. So I have no idea if this is going to work or make things worse. Oh, interesting. ASP.NET user logins, the user ID. is 9BD86.
Yeah.
And that's the test user. So there might have been some weird inconsistency that hopefully I haven't made worse, but let's try.
There you go.
Okay. All right. So example user works now after some fiddling with some stale information in the database, which I do not recommend going into your user database and hacking the way I just did. But now what we want to do is head back to, you said it was
Microsoft.com.
Microsoft.com. Because here in Graph Explorer, we have we can sign in with this same example user, and we can say that we're okay with Graph Explorer. And now, because I'm hoping this little picture comes up, because see, this particular account has a real picture. If I say get my photo and run the query, then isn't that great?
Awesome.
So the question for me now is that if I'm the app, what do I do?
Well, you should be able to see that's the response preview. Mm-hmm. You should be able to see the actual response, the JSON essentially that you would get back.
Well, it turns out I think that is what you get back, because you're getting back content type image. Like they're just flat out handing you an image.
Interesting.
Right?
Okay.
So when you call this, but now this is the me value. When you call graph to get somebody's photo, you're going to get back the image directly. So that's the part that I'm not sure. Let's go see what we do. I want to double check what we do in the... Well, let's see. In the Google world, there's a place in this, and it's not in here. Where is it? It's the Google. Is it an account? See, I didn't think it was in program, but maybe I'm wrong. I was just showing this earlier, where we pull out the Google. We basically say that we want a certain claim to come back. Mm-hmm. And now I don't remember exactly where that was. It's not going to be here. I don't think it's in the no, it's not in the external login picker. Okay, it might be easier. It might be easier to search for it. Yeah. Oh, I remember why. Because it's a different app. Blazor Auth from scratch was the app where we did that stuff. And in here, when we add Google, we configure it like claim options, right?
Yeah.
And I'm just not 100% sure if we can do something that simple, or what else we do here to map that image, because when we go to home, we say if this claim exists, then we go ahead and if the claim exists, then we just show it. We just say, if you've got a claim of this and it's not null, then let's just turn that into an image, whether it's a good image or not. We're in a similar situation here. but I can't say.
Well, what is that action? That thing you showed that goes and gets the actual picture, right? It was a claims.action.
So basically, what happens is that when you do this OpenID Connect challenge, you're going to get back a user with a bunch of claims. And the claim with the picture URL is just something that comes back from the challenge. Now, I wouldn't be shocked at all if that challenge is coming back in our Microsoft challenge as well. I wouldn't be shocked that it's already coming back. But my problem is figuring out just where do we do this?
So if I understand, you're saying it's looking at scopes inside of the token that you get back potentially.
Yeah, I kind of want to see, isn't there a place? Sign in this user if results succeeded. So let's try blocking here. Not in this app. If I go back to the Blazor Auth from Scratch app, and I want the external Google external login. It doesn't help me. It has to be the identity. Okay, so perform Google login. So we're going to do the Google login and then type results.challenge. I wonder. See, what I don't know is that we're going to see it. That's what I'm a little concerned about. So,
right.
In fact, it just hopped over it because I'm not logged in. So now I'll log in with Google. Okay, so return, we're going to challenge. And when we challenge, we don't really say a whole lot other than we're redirect back to 7130. The provider is Google. And then what happens is I'm almost positive that there is some code that's helping us here. But I didn't really necessarily want list. I don't need add. And then it ran over it. Okay, so what did it return? We don't know. Set notification for wait completion. See, I'm lost in thread code that I don't want to be lost in.
Yep.
This is where it's helpful to know where you're going to land. And just don't know for sure where we land after this. Because see, I don't want to go through this stuff.
No. It's also we need to see what called into that so that we can basically go back to it.
It's a form. It's because we used a form. So we clicked a form submit.
Yep.
Which I guess is in sign in login.
With the sign in, right? Yeah.
Oh no, that's sign in like manager. That's not it. It's here. But then back on home.razor, this is where we. So what's going to happen here is we're going to end up here where we have a user with claims.
Yeah. Can we see the claims?
I'm hoping so. I wish it wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
So there's a big collection of claims. They might be really small, but here's the one. You are in Google Picture.
And you get that we end up coming back.
Right. Yeah. But we also asked for it too, right? So if I
see the same. Go ahead.
I don't think it's going to be the same. So let me So let me try to get example user out of a. And I have not been watching comments just in case somebody's here telling us like, here's the exact answer.
Nothing like that. So we do have a comment from Ryan asking about, hey, can you just check if the user exists under the EntraID list of users? We know that user is there, and we've also authenticated that user. So we're pretty confident that we've got an active user in EntraID. So I don't think we need to go back through and check that. Good suggestion, but it's the fact that we've authenticated, tells us that it is an active user.
So I guess what my point is that this is the part I don't know, is that if you map what comes back, like that's what this map JSON key does, is select a top level value from the JSON user data with the given name and add it as a claim. This no ops if a key is not found or the value is empty. What I don't know how to do is read what comes back when it does the Microsoft challenge. I don't know how you sneak in and see what this stuff is. I'm sure that we could figure it out because in the past we've set breakpoints in framework code and said, okay, here's how you do something.
Right.
But I don't know what that is right now.
So in thinking through this before we jumped into this and how we might attack it, right? There's potentially two ways. And just, hey, brute force, can we get it to work? Was in my mind, we'll get a token back from the authentication. Let's just make a URL request to the graph endpoint and say, here's our token, include that in the header, so that they know who we are, because we're just basically saying, graph/me/photo. And then this way we would get back that photo image essentially.
Yeah, the problem is that what does graph me mean in the context of the web app? Don't we have to know the users?
Well, that's what the token is. The token is going to tell you who the user is.
Okay,
and so get that back to the graph endpoint, just like we did in the test harness.
Right, and unfortunately, that leads me back to where some of this is a little buried. It's not that it's bad; it's that they've made it so easy to add the Google Auth and add the Microsoft account Auth that what's happening under the covers is a little lost to us, right? Like it's there. Sure. And if I go to add Microsoft account, then all this is really doing is saying, okay, I want to make sure we add an authentication scheme with the options that you've given us. But my question now is the challenge. We have to know what happens during the challenge. And I guess I don't know if that's going to be easy to pick out quickly. So here it is, typed results.challenge leads me to, I'm in ASP.NET Core, Microsoft ASP.NET Core HTTP results, and challenge HTTP result. This could be where it is here, where it looks like it knows to, oh, this is just setting the auth schemes to challenge.
Okay.
But what I don't know, creates an HTTP challenge result that on execution invokes challenge async. Huh. Now, challenge async, I guess, is going to be one of these.
Right.
But I don't know which one. I feel like I actually might want to do this on a different. Well, it's fine. This is Blazor Auth from scratch. This is not our organizational one. But if I log in with Microsoft, this is because the application's not in the directory. That's okay, though. That's fine. Because I can, again, bring it up.
Client ID.
Yeah, I can bring over in private window.
Screen, so, yeah.
Oh, no, I'm fine.
You're good? Okay.
Why? Application with identifier was not found in the directory.
So what you're trying to do is use the app that authenticates Google, but also has an authentication from Microsoft. And that app, it's basically that client ID sounds like it's no longer an app registration in your tenant.
Or like you said, they expire, right?
Well, the tokens expire. Yes, the secrets expire. Sorry, not the tokens. Tokens expire as well, but that's different. So you may want to see if that app registration is in your tenant. And if it is, update the secret.
Okay.
Just in case I pulled your screen down.
I think I'm okay for now. That was a different app.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's okay. So app registrations, Blazor Auth from scratch app.
Yep.
Huh. So I have a feeling that it did get changed.
If you go back to that screen where you just were.
Yeah.
Yeah. See at the end, certificates and secrets.
Right.
There's nothing there. Yep.
I have a feeling that there might have been a second show. So I can update that pretty quickly here. And I'm doing it on a different screen.
Okay.
So I think you can leave this up.
Okay. Because that's the other project, the Blazor EntraID project.
Yeah.
That's what we're modifying, which is fine. Just commentating while you're doing. And I'm good to go a little long because I don't have anything until this afternoon. So you let me know when we need to kind of make sure we wind up.
Well, the problem here is figuring out where's the right place to do this. I'm not saying that calling the Graph API is necessarily wrong, but my question is how do you find out? So because the authentication system kind of buries some of this stuff, that we're just trying to figure out, how do we do this? So
before we go too far down that path, that was the one way I was thinking, because I know the URL's out there. We could just make it HTTP client, Rest call, boom, we're done. The other way is there is a Graph SDK. And do we use the Graph, bring in the Graph SDK and use that because it'll have the properties, once you have an authenticated user for my photo, essentially.
Now I think this has to be organizational. So I don't want this. I want. Well, that's interesting. So let's log out. Let's log in. Okay. So this isn't. See, I think what's happening is that because I think it knows I'm logged in. So even when I say log out, I'm not really logged out. So it is sort of working. It's just that I think I need to open another new in private window because we want to trigger the whole process.
Right.
Huh. And even if I open in private, it doesn't seem to really log me out, which is interesting. So I don't think that challenge is happening.
Right. Is there a cookie?
Yeah. We've played with this before.
Yeah.
We've come in here and yeah. And I have a feeling that I don't know if it's this one or the TDTS cookie.
It's probably the TDT. Well, I know we have a TDTS, but they run on different authentications, right?
So I don't know if it's just that. I think, is there another in private window? I bet you there's some silly rule that I have to close all the in private windows. I just have a feeling there's something where the app doesn't. I'm logged out of the app, but yet the browser is saying, yeah, I think it was the browser saying like, oh yeah, okay. I know who's logged in. Like, why are you making this so hard?
Yeah. Having multiple in privates doesn't mean they're separate, apparently, right?
I think that's what we just learned.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So we actually hit a breakpoint here now.
Awesome.
But that breakpoint we expected though.
Yeah.
So we're not hitting the other breakpoint I set, which I was hoping.
For the challenge,
I was hoping this
challenge async.
Yeah. Oh, because I did it in Perform Google, but still, I was really hoping that type results challenge would end up here. And I thought I set breakpoints here, but they're not. Oh, I might have to. I might have turned off the symbol server too. That is possible, although I usually don't. I would be surprised that I did that because well, now I've done it. So I'm surprised I didn't try to do this the first time, but that's okay. This part can take a while.
Okay.
Where it's basically loading symbols so that hopefully you can hit breakpoints, which is something that we've done on the show before where like I've actually dug into let's walk back what happens in the framework, right?
Right. It's not too terrible.
And as you can see, these are now lit up. Where just a second ago they were hollow.
Yeah.
And it was saying the symbols weren't loaded. So now
let's run it.
I don't know if Okay,
There
so
you go.
it's going to challenge. It's going to do the Microsoft challenge. So let's see what happens next, and see it just flew by it. So, oh wait, I take it back.
There you go.
We got to get authentication service. And I think all this is doing is figuring out what to do next. And what's this context here? Context is the post. So basically it's just passing. It looks like get authentication service takes an HTTP context directly and then challenge a sync. My question is where are you going? I can't navigate to it. That sucks. Okay, it's basically doing some dependency injection. It's saying it's going to go find the Microsoft authentication service in our service collection.
Nice.
And then challenge async. Okay. So where are we in the real world here? We are in ASP.NET Core authentication service.cs.
Right. So part of the
Okay,
framework.
so we're sitting in the framework somewhere. The problem is again, we get sent off somewhere else. Resolve target. What does that mean? Options forward challenge. It's going to figure out, okay, handle challenge async. This seems like a good place to be. I'm going to go ahead and redirect URL is not empty, so it doesn't try to make one up. That's nice and interesting that it tries to figure that out. It's creating a correlation ID. I guess that's fair to prevent clickjacking. Okay, fine. Build a challenge URL. And so it's built this big old challenge URL. Cool. This is generic too, I think. OAuth options. I can't say for sure. Okay, the challenge is still the handle logger.handle challenge. I wasn't really looking to, let's see. Oh, now, did it already do it? Did it already do this? Context response, await, redirect to authentication. Man, did I miss it? It put it's creating a cookie, and it's because I'm a little concerned that I'm sitting in the logging part now.
Right.
And then that's generated, so that's cool. What comes back from this? I haven't figured out what just happened, so.
No.
I have a feeling that there is a simple way to do this that we're just missing. That once you have a logged in user,
we should wind up with the user object.
Right. In fact, what I want to do is just see if I can just redo this. Oh man, I'm stuck in breakpoint. Okay, so let's just look at the context user claims for this particular. So here's what we got. We got the name identifier. That might be helpful. Example user, and then so this is the Microsoft account. I'm wondering if the way to go about this is either use that name identifier in the Graph API, or if a claim came back with the picture and we just don't know at the moment. So if I go to graph. I'm also willing to bet that if we maybe Google around, we might just find it.
Or ask Copilot.
So see, I don't know about this me.
So you feel like replace the me with the identity. So, but take out that space at the beginning. Now, is that because you're not authenticated?
I don't know. It could be because it might be like, hey, you're not allowed to.
Right. Just go poking around here.
Right.
Because, well, what's on the? I mean, you could do that. You'll see the, and then you can copy and paste the token in. But right. So I would say right now you're authenticated.
I am, but it's
and
still
that's still not
complaining.
returning. So that there is, so it's a different ID then, that you can replace me with. It might not be the ID that we pulled out of the claim there.
Yeah. Use Graph Explorer on the default sample tenant. I really wish it says applications. I don't really want that. Identity and access. That's not what I'm looking for.
What are you looking for?
Instead of me, I'd like to look, get user identities. What is this? So
Yeah.
is this something that you use as the application, right? As the application, you come in and say,
Yes, but you would have to have that scope in your token.
yeah.
So you would basically need like a user's read scope, and we would set that in the app registration, which we didn't do. We didn't send any special permissions other than letting them log in, which gets them an OpenID token.
Right. So I think that here's what I think. I think we're trying to do two separate things that they're related, but maybe don't have to be as difficult as we're making them. I am pretty sure that getting the user's picture from a logged in user is actually somewhat trivial because I feel like I've done it before. It's just been a while. But that's not the same question as how do I use the Graph Explorer to go through my EntraID list. Like maybe there was a great question asked here. Can you check if the user exists? I think that's an interesting point is what if I want to use some of these other features? Like, for example, with the EntraID API, I could list my team out. Like we could basically have a website where if we had an organization with everybody linked up, we could say, oh, welcome, Rich, and here's the rest of your team. I don't know how useful that is, but they're the kinds of questions that you ask when you're using the Graph API.
Right. Oh, totally.
Yeah. So and part of me feels like we're solving two different problems.
Yeah.
One is you've logged in. When that challenge is completed, what information do I have about you if I just only knew how to ask? And then you don't have to make any other calls. Versus, okay, you're logged in and your identity didn't come back with all this organizational information. How do I do that?
Right. So can we try? So you saw those claims that were there. There were like a half dozen claims. Can you go back to the EntraID, to the app registration?
Oh, I see what you're saying. Maybe a claim isn't being included.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought. I never even considered that. Okay, so I'm at the app registration.
Yep. So what we want to do here is API permissions on the left side there. So this says you have user read, and that's a delegated thing so you can sign in and read your user profile. And that's coming off of the graph.
So what we're saying is when somebody signs in using this app registration, they've delegated user read to the application.
Correct.
So
and that's why you get that pop-up that says, hey, do you want to allow the app to do this permission that it's asking? So we could add additional, especially if we go click that big Graph API banner at the top there. No, where you were was fine. Add a permission. Now, these are all of the things. Well, we don't want, we want delegated because we want them under you. And then if you do profile, we can see the basic profile information.
Huh.
So now that's going to be part of your token that when we authenticate. Go ahead.
So we want to go back and maybe see when we've logged in what
we want to see, that claims count,
that claims list.
Yep.
I think I need a new in private window because we are that example user. Okay. Well, this is interesting.
Closed.
This is interesting because we got a principal right here.
Yeah.
With a set of claims. It didn't change that. However, if I go to the principal identities, these claims probably didn't change. No, but
right.
It says it's authenticated.
Mm-hmm.
An authentication type Microsoft. Claims are listed. External claims didn't get filled with anything. I hope this isn't too small for people trying to watch.
It's a little tight, but
yeah. And then when that's
you can do. That's kind of what it is. Yeah,
it's kind of a bummer. There is something I can do. I can actually make that tooltip window much. I can change the font in there.
Yeah, actually, you might want to try Control 4 instead of Control 1.
Okay. Yeah, because that's the live one, right?
Yep. There you go.
So the claims in this list didn't change, but
no, just look at the same.
We do get a name identifier,
which we did have before. That was what we were trying to paste into the URL to get it to.
Yeah. This is really starting to ring a bell. I don't remember how to end live Zoom. Is it Control 4 again? Yeah,
escape.
It looks like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like there's something here. And I think with a little bit of digging, we can find it and maybe have it for next time. But unfortunately,
yeah.
I mean, I think we learned a lot. We learned how to kind of rehabilitate the app registration, and then
which is important.
Yeah, but we don't quite yet have. I know, like I said, it's been years, but I know that I've done this. It was before Blazor, and I had it working in Razor Pages, and I was using it. And so it's not that they're different. It's just remembering how you. Yeah. It's funny how when you brought me back here to add, this started to feel familiar. Like, hold on a second, I seem to remember coming in here and adding something, but what was it exactly?
So, all right, not to dive just real quick, not to dive too far into this. If you were to go back to the graph page where it has the Graph Explorer essentially, and if you were to take the access token from there, so that is essentially, the encrypted information of who you are, who you signed in as, what scopes you have. If you do the copy and then go to just open a new browser and go jwt.ms and then paste that token in. And so now you get all the claims that are there. And you can see, because we were able to access the profile, Graphic Explorer, there it is, about halfway where it's SCP, halfway, owner, it's OpenID, profile, user.read, and email. That's essentially what your token has provided you by signing into this application. So it doesn't mean that you need all of those to access photo. It just means that and we could see, kind of what claims photo endpoint needs. But the point is, you can assign the app registration is injecting those tokens, those scopes, when it provides that token. Whereas right now, I think if we were to get access to our token from the application that you would have user.read and you would have profile, because those are the two that we basically dropped into there.
Okay. So, see, the problem, they always say, like, get me. I don't really care about that. Here you got to put in a user by their email, but I would have to have,
test user, right?
Yeah. Is it as simple as me putting in?
Right, but that's you.
It is. I agree with you. And then I don't think we want the @ sign. It's probably to whatever @ is in. No, the URL. It's called canonicalization, I think.
Yeah.
It's %40.
Ah, there you go.
And then the dot is a problem too, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, I guess not. But it didn't like it.
There you go. You got your properties.
Yeah.
So
interesting.
Do the same thing, but make it test user, right? Because you're not authenticated as test user. You're just authenticated as example user.
Well, test user maybe isn't going to work because I'm not that user. Right. But what if I was the application? If I came in here and logged in as the application, which I think, or got an access token.
Right. Or opt the permissions on the access token to do essentially, I think it's user read all as a permission in your in the APIs. There you go, user read all. So now try and run test.
It didn't change it, although I still think.
Well, it wouldn't, because that's you.
So here's the thing: you have to use select to return non-default properties. See that? So photo is in this list, but I think we have to do something like
a filter.
Yeah.
No, not filter.
Which
select.
Again.
Yeah.
I'm not right. Which I'm not going to remember very quickly. So, okay. It is 9:30.
Yeah.
So
you got to get going.
I do. I think there's two paths here. I think there's as the application, what can we get from Graph? And then when you're signed in, what is delivered to us, like on a silver platter? And I have a feeling that we may be getting delivered more than we think, but because the framework is taking care of a lot for us, it's kind of getting buried. Kind of like how the Google challenge returns the photo, but unless you file that claim action to say, hey, go grab this out of the JSON and treat it as though it were a claim, we lose it.
You're not going to get it.
And the only reason I knew how to do that is because I happened to find it in a blog or a document somewhere. So I think it's possible.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, yeah, there are a couple ways. It's possible, and I think we're close. So maybe we plan that for the next one.
Yep. All right.
Cool.
Well, yeah, I do have to run for sure. So,
yep, I'll let you get going. So let's. So thanks everyone for watching. Thanks for the comments from folks in the chat room. That was awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
For your help there. We'll come back to this one. We know we're pretty confident there's a way we can solve this. So hopefully we'll do another show this week, either Thursday or Friday, and we can kind of run through that. So, we got to get going. So for Chris, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. This is Rich, and thanks for watching Dev Talk Show.